mutterings of the coming storm. During the early part of the year, Bishop Favier had gone to Europe in the interest of his mission. Hearing that signs of the approaching storm had been seen, he returned at once, and on May 18, 1900, wrote from Pekin the following letter: 1 Pekin, May 18, 1900. My stay in Europe was very short indeed, but no amount of kindness could have kept me away from my vicariate longer, and I am thankful now that I have returned. I felt, by intuition, that grave events were about to happen and that a storm was brewing. In case of a cyclone, a commander must be at his post, even if it means to be tied to the mast. To understand the insurrectional and anti-Christian movement that has gained ground so rapidly, we must investigate the causes. Permit me a few preliminary explanations. Seeing that the Emperor, Quan Su, could have no heir, and that, moreover, he was plotting to deprive her of the regency, the Empress nominated a new emperor, or rather an heir presumptive. This future sovereign of China, 12 to 14 years of age, is a grandson of Prince Tuan, the fifth brother of Emperor Shirenfang, who died in 1860. The son of the Prince Tuan mentioned, who has the same name and is the father of the new emperor, is filled with hatred against Europeans and their religion. His animosity is easily accounted for. Prince Kong, the sixth prince who has assumed the regency since 1860, and his younger brother, the seventh prince who succeeded him as father of the emperor, Quan Su, were both younger brothers of Prince Tuan, who by right should have governed since 1860. Besides, when there was question of choosing a successor to the emperor, Tunche, who died without issue, the son of the seventh prince instead of the son of Prince Tuan was unlawfully selected. These two acts of injustice so incensed the latter that he retired to Mukden with his family. The choice of the new heir presumptive has given Prince Tuan great influence with the empress. He has returned with his old hatred against Europeans, treaties, and all that has happened since 1860, and, besides, in complete ignorance of European affairs, the progress accomplished and concessions granted. In fact, he is still imbued with all the old ideas of 40 years ago. The old party and all persons of note who have preserved the feeling of hatred against Europe and the Christian religion have rallied around Prince Tuan. The result is two decided parties, that of the prince, and that of the princes and mandarins who have been in power since 1860. These have accepted progress, and issued the protective laws and decrees for religion, culminating in that of March 15, 1899, which the Empress herself brought about and signed, and which has not been revoked. Though the old party has since come into power, numerous sects under the names of Boxers, Large Knives, etc., whose insurrection originated in Shantung, have for the past 7 or 8 months spread throughout Chile, directing their movements toward Pekin. The Boxers are a truly diabolical sect. Invocations, incantations, obsession, and even possession are common among them. Savants may attribute their extraordinary doings to magnetism or hypnotism, or may look upon them as victims of hysteria and fanaticism, but to us they seem to be even more directly instruments of the devil. The hatred of the name Christian drives them to the greatest excesses. Established, as they are, in every village, they unite on a day specified to attack any one Christian settlement. On Saturday, May 12, they burned the village of Kaulo, and massacred more than 70 persons. Several other villages were burned immediately afterwards. The Christians took flight, leaving all their worldly possessions behind them. The city of Pekin itself is not safe. Boxers are there in great numbers, and everywhere placards are posted announcing the burning of churches and the destruction of Europeans. The movement seems to be approved by those high in authority, and converges from all quarters toward Pekin. The standards of the rebels bear such inscriptions as, "Protect the dynasty and destroy Europeans. By order of the emperor, let us destroy all Europeans." Danger, therefore, is imminent. We have taken all the precautions dictated by prudence. I have written letters to all the upper mandarins. At my request, troops have been sent to a number of Christian settlements, but they are nearly all inadequate and some are ill-disposed. Nevertheless, I believe there would be greater evil done without them. In our pressing necessity, I have ordered public prayers for peace, which God alone can grant. Besides, I have written an official letter to the foreign minister, who has convoked the diplomatic corps. It has been unanimously decided to force the Chinese government to prompt action under the penalty of calling in foreign troops. Despite the danger, all are ready at their posts. The conduct of the Christians is admirable. Apostasy is proposed to them, but they prefer flight, ruin, even death. Several catechumens have received the baptism of blood. May 28. This letter, commenced 10 days since, has been interrupted by 10 days of sorrow. Every hour brings fresh news of misfortune. The massacre in Kowloon was horrible. The victims numbered more than 80. Small children were quartered, women were burned in church or run through with a sword, men were stabbed or shot. It is rumored that some were crucified. 20 persons escaped because they were absent at the time of the massacre. A young man, 18 years of age, was thrown into a well where he remained 48 hours. When the assassins left, he made his escape and has just arrived among us. In another village, 2 Christians were cut into pieces. In a third, several were massacred. 30 villages at least have been abandoned by the Christians, 6 have been burned to the ground, together with their churches. The poor Chinese, who are pursued, take refuge in the mountains or in the largest cities. We are giving shelter to more than 2,000. The last few days, in particular, have been a terrible experience. The Boxers united in arms, May 26th, to attack Chala at the very gates of Pekin. Only a miracle saved the place that night. We had, fortunately, taken the precaution of bringing the Sisters of Char Ity into the city. The next day, the terrible and, unfortunately, true news was circulated that the Boxers, with unheard of audacity, had burned the Hankow-Pekin Railroad for about 95 miles, as far as the terminus station near the capital. All was destroyed, material, stations, stores. We do not yet know whether all the foreigners along the road were saved or not. The same evening our large establishment of Beitang was to have been burned. The announcement had been proclaimed and posted for several days, and I consider our escape miraculous. The different foreign ministers have met in consultation and have decided to call in special detachments. If they do not arrive within 8 days, the fault will surely not be theirs. Chinese troops have taken possession of the railway and have re-established communication with Tientsin, interrupted for 48 hours. A most insufficient imperial decree was published this morning, but that protects neither religious establishments nor the legations in Pekin from a coup de main. The Christian settlements in the province are in the greatest danger. Every minute may bring us the news of a fresh catastrophe. We must hope, nevertheless, we are in the hands of God, and not a hair of our heads shall fall without His permission. Such is our position today, May 30th. I hope that I shall be able to write better news in a few days. But the revolution against foreigners and the persecution against Christians seems so well organized that we may expect anything. Perhaps our prayers and those of our poor Christians will appease the anger of God. After the clouds had broken. From the date mentioned, May 30th, with the exception of one brief dispatch, telling of the brutal murders of some religious, no word was received from Catholic sources at Pekin until the following September. Then, when regular communication with Europe was once again established, among the most important and interesting documents received was the journal of the Right Reverend A. Favier, C.M., Vicar Apostolic of Pekin, with its accompanying letter. Tientsin, September, 1900. The conduct of our Christians has been admirable. All devoted themselves to most fervent prayer without fearing for their lives. The couriers sent to the legations were in danger of death, several never returned. On the 10th of August, one of them again sacrificed himself to inform the minister of our being in the last extremity of need. Poor young man. He was flayed, and the Boxers exposed his skin and head within a few yards of our own walls. It was a sad sight to behold Christian women depriving themselves of their own meager allowance of food to nourish their infants. For a long time they had had no breast milk, with small pieces of tin that served as spoons. They introduced the weak gruel into the mouths of their poor children. Our number was increased during these 2 months by 30 newborn babes. One morning, before Holy Mass, one of these brave Christian women, who had been confined during the night, threw herself at my feet, with the words, "Bishop, Bishop, let me have some millet that may have a little milk." I was obliged to refuse her with tears in my eyes. There was nothing more to give. We were obliged to cook the leaves of trees, and roots of dahlias and kenny, stems and the bulbs of lilies. These, stewed together, increased the small pittance of food allowed to each. At night all occupied the one place, trying to protect themselves against bullets, and, especially, mines. 200 or 300 children were crying for hunger. The intense heat kept me from sleeping, and I felt as though I were listening to the bleating of a flock of little lambs destined for sacrifice. These cries, however, grew weaker day by day, for we buried 170 of these innocents. Misery, hunger, sickness, and bullets have more than decimated the Christian population. The number of dead buried in our garden exceeds 400. All died good Christians, saying, "We die for our religion," killed out of hatred for the faith. The good God will give us paradise. Our sisters of charity have behaved admirably, more tried than we ourselves were. Perhaps they deprived themselves of everything for their children, excepting one or two whose nervous debility excused their apprehensions, all manifested truly manly courage. The frightful shock of the last mine was the final blow to the venerable superioress, Sister Jorias, who was 78 years of age and sick. She died a happy death, for God did not call her until after the deliverance. How shall I speak of the missionaries? My coadjutor was everywhere, watched over everything, encouraging, consoling, and supporting everyone, crossing the most dangerous places constantly without heeding shot or ball. The director of the seminary with his young men watched night and day on the roof of the church, on the barricades, and in the trenches. The seminarians with one of our young colleagues still not in orders promptly filled the places of our dead or wounded soldiers, and used their guns like trained men. Several were struck by balls, but, thanks be to God, none was killed. Our procurator continued to fulfill his duties with astonishing calmness, attending to everything, and though in delicate health, suffered privations with uncommon fortitude. Our native missionaries multiplied themselves to establish a little order in the house. They directed the workers, watched over the distribution of food, preserved peace, and administered the last consolations to the dying. Only myself did nothing worthy of mention. In constant retirement in my room, I prayed to God, to the Blessed Virgin, to the holy angels, and to all our patron saints. I tried to preserve in myself, and to impart to others, the spirit of resignation, patience, and calm so necessary in times like these. I do not think that I exaggerate in estimating the number of victims in the vicariate of Pekin alone to be 20,000 at least, 20,000 victims, dead, burned, cut to pieces, or thrown into the rivers, without making the slightest idolatrous prostration that would have spared their lives. I do not believe that 2 out of 100 have saved themselves by a single superstitious act where the heart was not involved. Not one of our missionaries left his post, though the mandarins offered to conduct them under escort to a place of safety. Not one forsook his Christians. At the present hour, notwithstanding the arrival of troops, more than 25 are besieged in their residences. May God protect them. In Pekin, 3 churches, 7 large chapels, the colleges, hospitals, and establishments of the Sisters of St. Joseph, native, all are destroyed. The cemeteries in which missionaries have been buried, from Matthew Ricci to Bishop Sarthan, Fritz and Churis, have been robbed, monuments overthrown, bones, even the coffins, reduced to ashes and cast to the winds. The Beitang, northern cathedral, damaged by shells, is the only building undestroyed. Fathers Adasi, Garrigues, Dor, and Chavan were killed in Pekin, and several Chinese priests in the mission likewise lost their lives. The vicariate possessed 177 Christian settlements, of which nearly all had their chapels. Hardly 1/4 have been spared. The houses of Christians have been pillaged and burned. I know but one in Pekin that has been left standing. In short, the ruin is almost entire. The work of 40 years is nearly annihilated. The courage of missionaries, nevertheless, is not on the wane. We shall begin over again, assured of success in the end, for the blood of martyrs is the seed of Christians. Unless God designed to punish unhappy China, that has abused his grace for centuries. Let us hope that he will grant pardon. So many persons, even among the mandarins, are innocent of the atrocities committed. We love, and will ever love, our poor people of China. Pray for them and for us. Gratias Adamos Domino Deo Nostro. Part 2 Through the Valley of the Shadow of Death, Day by Day. May through June. The last news which I was able to forward from Pekin was dated May 30th. Permit me to give you a short account of the terrible siege which we have sustained in the Beitang until the day of deliverance granted by God. Wednesday, May 30th today. We received proof that the Boxers are assisted by the Chinese government and regular troops. These last themselves set fire to the railway buildings. The Tsung Liamin tried to delay troops, but the foreign ministers held out, replying that they would come on foot if the railroad were not left open to them. From 9 till 11 o'clock in the evening, several small red balloons, sent off by the Boxers, floated over the city. They were signals for assembling. the Chinese soldiers had possessed themselves of a supply of cartridges. Thursday, May 31. My Vicar General, Father Gillis, whom I called to Pekin, left for Tientsin. With Father KP. Will they be able to reach their destination? We are sure of nothing. They say the route is intersected by soldiers. A telegram from Father Dumont was received at 10 o'clock, 7 other Christian villages burned. At 12:30 I received a letter from the French minister. Himself and the Russian minister were called upon to exert an unusual degree of energy in order that the French and Russian Marines who landed in Taku the evening before might reach Pekin by rail. At 3:30 a mandarin from our friends came to see us. He told us that the Empress could not resist the anti-European movement. The good mandarins have been discharged from office, or have resigned. 75 French, 75 Russians, 75 English, 40 Italians, 22 Japanese, and 60 Americans left Tientsin for Pekin at 3:30. They are expected this evening. Friday, June 1. Refugees from all quarters are arriving. Our missions of Pachu are nearly totally destroyed. The brave Father Lon Gregoire was the last to remain in his residence, and escaped from the Boxers by flight. Sisters of Saint Joseph, children of the Holy Childhood, have been massacred. The French minister came to see us at 9:30 o'clock and told us of the coming of 30 Marines, who, in fact, arrived at the Beitang at 10 o'clock, accompanied by nearly all the French in Pekin. That some Liaomen had specified that the troops were destined to guard only the legations. But M. Pichon himself brought us nearly the half of his detachment. May he be assured of our lasting gratitude. At midnight Father Gillis telegraphed to us that refugees from Pachu were arriving in large numbers in Tientsin, and that the river was filled with floating bodies of massacred Christians. Saturday, June 2d. We are placing posts everywhere. The ensign of the vessel, Mr. Paul Henry, a young man 23 years old, who is in command of the Marines, is as pious as he is brave, a true Briton. The news from Tientsin is bad. The grants themselves are exposed. The engineers have left the city of Poutingfo, and the mandarins would like to get our European colleagues to leave likewise. They are refusing, declaring that they must remain among their Christians until the end. May God protect them. Sunday, Pentecost, June 3d. The Sovereign Pontiff having delegated me to present a letter and a gift to the Empress in his name, I proceeded to fulfill this mission of confidence. His Majesty not being in the city, he appointed Prince Tseng to receive me in his name, which event took place today, at 2 o'clock, in his own palace. This prince was surrounded by high mandarins. Letter and presents were delivered with full imperial ceremonial, and were accepted with the greatest marks of respect and appreciation. I had, besides, drawn up a petition for the Empress, in which I explained the actual position. I asked protection for our Christians, and the punishment of the Boxers. The prince consented to take charge of it, and I know that the next day it was delivered to His Majesty. Monday, June 4th. The Beitang, examined by our commander, seemed impossible to defend with 30 men. There are, in fact, nearly 1,400 yards of wall. It has been decided that in case of too violent an attack, all are to unite in the church, and the plan of defense is being prepared. We are, besides 70 Europeans, including sisters and brothers, about 1,000 male Chinese and nearly 2,200 women and children. At 1 o'clock we received a visit from several gentlemen of the legation who told us that the 15 soldiers already sent to Nantan were obliged to be withdrawn as given up to certain death by the impossibility of an efficacious defense. Case of attack, what is to become of our colleagues, the Sisters of Charity, the Sisters of St. Joseph, the Marist Brothers, and so many Christians who live in this parish? To God's protection. In the evening, at 6 o'clock, 20 Christians were armed as guards. The danger increases. In Tuesday, June 5th. I telegraphed since morning to the Superior General in Pekin and in Tientsin peril is extreme for all. A dispatch from Father Gillis informs us of many fires and as many more massacres of Christians. Here, everybody is working on barricades, lances are being made, and the supply of provisions is being increased. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the Italian minister sent 10 of his Marines to defend the establishment of the sisters, who belong to the Holy Childhood, with whom are several Italian sisters. At 7:30 the governor of the city came to me and told me, "You have nothing to fear, the Boxers will not dare to attack the Beitang." This great Mandarin is perhaps sincere, but, for my part, I believe his assertion to be absolutely false. Wednesday, June 6th. We are multiplying the means of defense. We have learned that the Empress has sent 2 members of the Grand Council to arrest the Boxers by persuasion. It is altogether useless. Thursday, June 7th. We are constructing a small turret to protect the eastern wall of our residence. I am going to the legations, where they still hope for a new imperial decree better than those preceding has just been issued. For myself, I cherish no hope, and do not fail to repeat that an attack is imminent. At 8 o'clock the Marist brothers of Chala came back to the Beitang. Friday, June 8th. Villages are burning on all sides, fires are multiplying during the night, the firing of guns is heard everywhere, and we are obliged to watch till morning. Saturday, June 9th. Some Boxers have been seen in the KOU. The KOU is the northern part of the large park, the southern part of which was given to us by the Emperor to construct our cathedral. I am going to the legations again, where all optimism has not died out. The Empress has returned to the city with the court, and issued a very strong new decree. The governor has himself written to me that he has received a special order to protect the churches of Pekin. I have but little confidence in his words, they will be overridden. Sunday, June 10th. I shall telegraph to Paris again, because I am afraid that in a short time I shall be unable to do so. Then I am going to the legations, where there is great uneasiness, because of the revolt of the soldiers of General Tun Focion. Fresh troops left Tientsin this morning under the command of Admiral Seymour. We hope to see them arrive here tomorrow. But the Boxers have all left the city. The regular soldiers are on the walls with artillery. At 8 o'clock the telegraph wires were cut between Tientsin and Pekin, as well as between Pekin and Beijing. These facts are bad signs. I shall be very much surprised if the reliefs can arrive. Monday, June 11th. From the top of our church we see the summer residences of Europeans, on the western hills, in flames. At 10:15 many Boxers with their standards passed along the wall of the Yellow City. Serious alarm, everybody is at his post. Nevertheless, I left for the legations. Confidence is felt there, detachments from Admiral Seymour and numerous troops are expected, because the admirals have received orders to send all they have as soon as the telegraph wires are cut, and that has been done. I share little of this hope. Prince Tuan, Grand Chief of the Boxers, and High Mandarins, their friends, have just been named members of the Tsang. At 5 o'clock in the evening the Chancellor of the Japanese legation, going before the expected troops, was massacred near the southern gate by the soldiers of Tun Focion. They have united with the Boxers, and are trying to keep all Europeans from entering or leaving Pekin. Tuesday, June 12th. The Boxers have set fire to the stacks of straw next to the house of the Sisters of Chala. At 7 o'clock in the evening fresh alarm made us take up arms, but our fears were without ground. A half-hour later Mr. Pichon wrote to us that the new members of the Yamen had come to see him, that they had been very kind, and that Admiral Seymour would enter the city without difficulty. God grant that the words of the Mandarins may be sincere, but we cannot believe them. Wednesday, June 13th. General Tun Focion is in open revolt. The Christians of Pekin are leaving their homes. 3 of them have been massacred in the Chinese city by the Boxers. We have learned through the legations that Admiral Seymour with his troops slept in Langfo yesterday. This village is about 40 miles from here. The railroad has been burned. We can hardly dare hope that the troops can arrive now. At midday we learned that the French cemetery was burned and completely destroyed. The watchman, his wife, and children have been massacred. Bad night, fires and cries of death. To some extent, everywhere, women are taking refuge in the church. At 9:30 o'clock we saw our beautiful church of St. Joseph in Tongtan in flames. Toward 10 o'clock ominous noises. The Boxers are heard giving the word of command to the west of our establishment. At 11 o'clock 2 Christians confirmed the burning of this church. We watched until morning, because the trumpets of the Boxers sounded on all sides. Thursday, June 14th, Feast of Corpus Christi. At 8 o'clock in the morning we saw from the top of the church the constant blaze of Tungtian and several other fires. We can no longer hold communication with anyone. The gates of the Yellow City are closed, guarded by the troops of Prince Tuan. At 11:30 o'clock the old cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in Nantan, the residence, the college, the hospital, the orphanage, all took fire. It is a horrible sight. Toward midnight, much firing of cannon and guns to the south. Will Lord Seymour arrive? Cries of death from Boxers all around us. Chow, chow, kill. Kill. Chow, chow, burn. Burn. Till 2 o'clock in the morning everybody was up and about, then the cries grew fainter, and the Boxers seemed to be retreating. Friday, June 15th. All the sisters expected death, and received Holy Communion. Children and women have taken refuge in the cathedral. At 8 o'clock we learned from an escaped Christian that the missionaries, brothers, sisters, and children of St. Joseph, in Nantan, are safe in the legations. Detachment of volunteers, as courageous as devoted, went to save them at 1 o'clock in the morning. At 11:30 we saw the tower of Our Lady of the $7 in Setion, the bricks of which are reddened by fire. All is surely burned. A courier, sent by us to the legation, came back at 3 o'clock, bringing a letter from Mr. Pichon, and one from Father Adosio, pastor in Nantan. No news of the detachments, fight with the Boxers. Father Garrigues, pastor in Tuntang, is surely murdered. Many Christians taken refuge in the palace of Prince So, to the north of the legations. At 6 o'clock we learned that Father Dor, pastor in Setion, had been murdered. At 7 o'clock our establishments were surrounded on the south, east, and west by a large crowd of Boxers. A half hour later, their horrible cries were heard. We were surely going to be attacked. The sisters and all their children came to the cathedral, where there were already 1,800 women and babies, maddened by fear. They were just in time. The Boxers arrived by the south at 7:45. Their leader, on horse, is a Lama Arabanze. He precedes an immense red flag, surrounded by young Boxers who have undergone the incantations and are likewise dressed in red. They burned perfumed sticks, prostrated themselves on entering our street on the south, and then advanced in compact bands. The Marines of our great gate let them approach within 200 yards, then sent a volley into their ranks, which laid 47 of these so-called invulnerables low, and put the thousands of Boxers, who followed, to flight. We went out at once and captured 5 swords and 1 lance. The Boxers, driven back, at once set fire to the houses which adjoin ours on the south. We have been preserved by God, who changed the direction of the wind in our favor. Moreover, wet covering, pumps, nothing had been forgotten to assist Providence. Made furious by their failure, witnessed by a crowd of 10,000 persons ready to plunder, the Boxers redoubled their noise and ferocious yells until after midnight, but did not dare to attack anew. This first serious encounter has given us hope in manifesting the cowardice of our enemies. The Christians, whom we had armed with about 500 lances, had, besides, 7 or 8 poor guns. Made courageous by this first success, they promised to keep watch with the Marines on the 1,400 yards of wall. Saturday, June 16th at Peru. A fugitive, we learned the admirable constancy of many Christians massacred without the gate Pingzumen, of whom not one would deny his faith. That is very consoling. At 12:30 serious alarm, cries of Boxers, arrival of regular soldiers, who guard the gate of Sihoa. They are evidently not to defend, but to attack us. Our purveyor refuses to sell anything. He is threatened with death if he gives us the least supply. Towards 4:30 an immense fire begins to rage in Chenmen. The Boxers, after having burned all the houses of Christians, are now burning the stores where a few European articles are sold. A courier sent to the legation came back at 5 o'clock. Always no news from Admiral Seymour. At 7:30 everyone is at his post. More than 300 soldiers and numerous Boxers have surrounded our residence. The sisters and Christians again pass a sad night in the church. An imperial decree, issued during the day, announces officially to all China that the churches of Pekin have been burned. Sunday, June 17th, from 2 till 3:30 in the morning many cannon shots and volleys from the side of the legations. Toward 10 o'clock, Boxers and troops blockade us completely. However, a Christian gives himself up, leaves, and brings us word from Mr. Pichon. More than 2,000 houses have been burned in Chenmen, of which 26 large Chinese way. At 4:30, a large number of Boxers came in vehicles, and preparations for attack began. A heavy rain sent by God at 6:15 prevents the attack. Tuesday, June 19th, a servant from Setion, after having wandered about in the city several days, succeeded in coming to us, and told us that Father Dor was burned to death in his room together with 20 Christians. He would not make use of his arms. A few days before, this brave father said to me, "Bishop, if I am attacked, may I make use of my gun?" I answered him, "Of course it is permitted in case of legitimate defense." He added, "But, if it were to defend myself alone, would it not be more perfect not to make use of it?" I then said to him, "Assuredly, to be murdered for God without making any defense is true martyrdom. That is what this beloved brother has done. In the street 10 pieces of cannon are turned toward us. Are they to defend the palace, or to attack us?" Wednesday, June 20th. A Christian has reached us despite the blockade. He has informed us that the German minister was killed in going to Yemen, and that the other ministers have received orders to leave within 24 hours. Massacres of Tientsin. A brave Christian has given himself up to go to the legations again. He has brought back this short message from Mr. Pichon. The French legation and other ministers are obliged to withdraw to the English legation. The German minister has been really killed and his interpreter wounded. The Austrian legation has been evacuated and will be burned. The project of leaving Pekin has been abandoned. Let us prepare ourselves for the last journey, but let us still hope. On his part, Mr. Darcy, lieutenant and the superior officer of Mr. Paul Henry, has written to him, "You should have received the order to rally, but remain at your post for the present." God permitted that this order to rally never reached us, otherwise we should all have been lost. The situation is grave. Are we going to join the martyrs of Tientsin? We are preparing ourselves for all things. Friday, June 22d, Feast of the Sacred Heart. We are completely blockaded, and are no longer able to hold communication with anyone without. Those besieged are as follows: Bishop Favier, Bishop Jarlin, Coadjutor, Reverend du Colombier, Procurator General of the Vicariate, Reverend Giron, Director of the Seminaries, Rev. Chavan, Professor recently arrived, Mr. Gartner, student not yet in orders, Brother Dennis and Brother Mays, the visitor of the Marist brothers, the superior and 4 brothers of the same society, 22 sisters of charity, of whom 8 are native, 30 French Marines of the d'Entrecasteaux, the ensign in command, Mr. Paul Henry, 10 Italian Marines, the size an adjutant and an ensign, Mr. Olivieri, 111 pupils of the Grand and Little Seminaries, 900 men and youths, refugees, 1,800 women and children, 450 young girls from the schools and orphanages, 51 infants in the cradle, approximate total, 3,420 in all, of whom 71 are Europeans. With £1 to a person a day, we have enough provisions for more than 1 month. Our arms consist of 40 guns of the Marines, 7 or 8 guns of all kinds in the hands of Chinese, a few poor swords and 500 lances, or rather 500 long sticks tipped with iron. These are all. The line to be defended measures exactly 1,360 yards. I had determined, in a pastoral letter, that the consecration of the Vicariate to the Sacred Heart should take place today, at 6:30 o'clock. The priest kneeling at the foot of the altar was read the first words of consecration, when a severe cannon shot broke a window of the church, where all had assembled, and killed a poor woman. A panic, readily pardoned, seized the people, all crowded in the chapels and sacristies of the west, as we had been attacked from the east. Cannon reports succeeded one another at minute intervals. The church was speedily evacuated. 14 Krupp guns set forth without interruption the latest improved shrapnel bombs. Several small brick columns, double windows, flew into pieces. The facade of our cathedral is badly damaged. The steeples are in ruins, but the cross of marble continues to stand. About 3:30 the attack was so violent that we believed our last hour had come. Toward 5 o'clock an ordinary Chinese cannon, leveled about 300 yards away from our large door, sent a full volley which blew in a panel. Greatly excited by so great audacity, Commander Henry and Bishop Jarlin led for Marines, who with 30 Christians, hurried without after a heavy fire, and took possession of the cannon, which they brought back with them despite a heavy discharge of musketry. 2 Christians met death and 2 were wounded in this bold venture. A short time afterwards all firing of cannon ceased. The Boxers uttered fierce cries, and set fire to the houses of our neighbors on the south. They will not go far away, and when they do they leave the place to their friends, the soldiers of Prince Tuan. Today alone they fired 530 cannon shots against us. We mourned the loss of but 3 men and 1 woman. That was little for so much powder burned. Saturday, June 23d. The night was comparatively calm, but the attack recommenced at 9 o'clock, as violent as the day before. I was seated with the commander on a small bench near our great gate, watching the marble of the facade of our beautiful church being blown to pieces, when a clever gunner sent a bomb even to the foot of the cross, which, broken, fell on the parvis. I felt so happy in fixing this beautiful cross of marble on the top of the building only 13 years ago. However, if God spares us, it will again take its place. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the bombardment ceased. We had received but 360 cannon shots during the day. Not a single man was wounded. Everyone had prayed fervently, ready for death. God and the Blessed Virgin are protecting us perceptibly. Sunday, June 24. The regular soldiers, sheltered behind the walls of burned houses, have, since morn aimed thousands of shots from Mauser rifles against us. Their guns are repeaters and the latest improved. Up to midday we counted only 30 cannon shots, which worked comparatively little damage, throwing nothing but loaded balls. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon a battery of 4 pieces was stationed in the Rhone to the north of our establishments. The Tartars sent murderous shells against the church and into the courts, taking all our posts on the east by enfilade fire. 2 Christians were killed. The Italians, having very few cartridges, Commander Henry procured them some by a bold venture with 10 French Marines. The volleys, sent at a range of 750 yards, silenced the fire of the artillery. The Tartars lost over 50 men, and hastened to move their cannon. Spirits are raised, the sanitary condition is excellent, divine protection is manifest, and we now hope to be able to resist attacks that cannot be more serious than those of the past 3 days. God grant that we may have enough provision, and that the army of relief may not be too long in coming. Monday, June 25. The night, like the morning, was comparatively calm, but it seems that a great battle is being fought on the side of the legations. The cannon of yesterday are silent behind their entrenchments. We sustain well a hail of projectiles sent by guns on the ramparts. We have become accustomed to so much noise during the past 3 days that we hardly pay any more attention to it. The Boxers have placed mannequins on the roofs of the houses. This childish stratagem does not make us waste ammunition. There remain 275 cartridges to each man, and they will not be put to other than good use. Tuesday, June 26. The Boxers have set fire to all the houses which adjoin us, and are working back of the imperial wall, where they are placing ladders and scaffolding, so as to be able to shoot more conveniently. They are firing on us from all sides, but no one has been struck. In the afternoon there was a hard fight on the side of the legations. Wednesday, June 27. Since 6 o'clock in the morning the Boxers have been again attacking us on the south. They have entered our street with a large red flag, thinking perhaps that our post at the gate of entrance had been destroyed during the bombardment of the preceding days. Like the first time they were put to flight by well-directed volleys. They were chased in pursuit, and the arms which they threw down have been collected. In this sortie of scarcely 100 yards, the second mate was unfortunately wounded by a shot in the shoulder. From the tops of houses, ladders, and scaffolding, the enemy has covered our courts and porches with shot for more than 6 hours. A young girl has been killed, and a woman wounded in the head. About 11 o'clock in the evening we were surprised by a large band of Boxers throwing explosive bombs and burn-ing arrows against our great gate, which, at the same time, they wet with petroleum by means of fire pumps stolen by them. During this time, the regular soldiers rained a shower of balls from their Mauser rifles. Everybody is behaving well. The great gate is saved, and only 1 Christian has been wounded. Our Marines are truly admirable. They all wear a scapular and a crucifix, and feel themselves protected by God. Thursday, June 28. After a calm enough day, we suffered a vigorous attack at 6 o'clock in the evening, and counted as many as 42 gunshots to the minute. Terrible night. The Boxers began anew their attack against the great gate. Our people, infuriated, decided about midnight to venture a sortie. They threw themselves on the Boxers, who wet us with petroleum at a distance of less than 30 yards. 10 Boxers were killed, the others put to flight. 2 petroleum pumps, powder, shot, and even several chests of clothing were captured. Despite the terrible discharges from the regular soldiers, the most dangerous houses were set afire. The punts taken still contained about 25 gallons of petroleum apiece. Friday, June 29th, Feast of SS Peter and Paul. We offered our congratulations to the brave commander, Paul Henry. We spoke of Angers, his country, and the happiness of his parents upon seeing him again. But, he said to us, you will see that we will save the Peking. Perhaps some of us will be no more. I shall be happy to die in so worthy a cause. I hope that God will open paradise to me. If I am to die, I shall not die until you no longer need me, etc. I implored him, as on every day, not to expose himself. I fear for him, he is so brave, so full of courage, so devoted. It seems as though the Boxers intend to leave us this day of joy, apart from the balls which are putting holes in our windows or flattening against the walls as usual, all is quiet, and we are not called upon to sustain any serious attack. At 10 o'clock in the evening a frightful storm broke, and the thunder seemed to fall on the palace. Nevertheless, heavy firing on the side of the legations. Saturday, June 30th, the morning was saddened by the death of the poor second mate, Joe Nick. We believed him saved, when his wounds gangrened, and occasioned his death in a few hours. Alas! We had neither doctor nor surgeon. He died like a brave Breton, fortified by all the sacraments. At 11:30 we were surprised to see ourselves again bombarded. A dozen bombs of very large caliber burst in the air without harming anyone. At the end of a quarter of an hour, this cannonading, accompanied by heavy firing from the east, ceased all of a sudden. What did it mean? I saw on the mountain of the White Tower, in the midst of the lakes of the palace, 1,200 yards from us, 20 persons magnificently clothed. It was thought that Prince Tuan, the Empress, and other high personages, had come to look on the bombardment as upon a display of fireworks. Our Marines had a great desire to send a discharge from their labels on this group, but I thought I should keep them from doing so in order not to excite an already too violent hatred. At 5:30 we buried the second mate, very simply and quickly, in our garden, for balls rained mercilessly around those present. Our brave Christians are all saddened, and say, why not 100 of us dead instead of this brave seaman? Sunday, July 1st, about 8 o'clock we heard a number of cannon shots in the south. Are they the reinforcements? We still hope against all hope. For the first time we begin to eat ass's flesh. Mules and horses will follow. There are 18 of them. Smallpox is broken out among the children. 7 to 8 are dying every day. Monday, July 2d. The attacks are less lively than on preceding days, but the food is very bad. No more vegetables, no more salted herbs. For our poor Christians, they commence to lose spirit. Heat, 38 degrees Celsius, atmosphere damp, no news for 12 days. What a long time. Tuesday, July 3d. A very heavy rain disturbs us greatly. If the rainy season has already calmed, men said, all hope of deliverance must be abandoned. As everyone knows, everybody smokes in China. We have no more tobacco. Our people are making it with leaves from pear trees, dried and powdered. Mortality is on the increase. We are now burying as many as 15 children a day. Wednesday, July 4th. This morning the Liga Italians were more severely attacked. About midday we saw the soldiers and Boxers erecting a large platform of earth to the north of the Yellow Wall. They evidently want to place their cannon so as to bombard us from the rear, at 800 yards. Our gun has struck down 12 of these bandits. At 5 o'clock in the evening the Boxers again appeared opposite our great gate. The cannon which we had taken was loaded and pointed. The Chinese artilleryman, a Christian formerly in the army of Prince Tuan, fired without orders and much too soon. The enemy fled, with only a few wounded. Christian watchmakers who have taken refuge amongst us, make excellent Lebel, Mauser, and other cartridges. We shall not, therefore, lack ammunition. Thursday, July 5th. We have been able to manufacture powder for the cannon taken from the enemy, and placed to protect the sisters, so as to return the fire that threatens us from the north, but it is very little compared with those who are firing against us. During the whole day we were aimed at from the south of the Yellow Wall, without any serious result. Friday, July 6th. We begin to fear famine. Rice, wheat, beans, millet, all is weighed exactly. The total is better than we had hoped, nearly 60,000 pounds. With a pound to a person a day, we are safe for 20 days. At the end of that time we shall have surrendered or been delivered. At 5 o'clock in the evening an unusual noise was heard. It was a fuse hurled at the church, which went through a window, leaving a long train of fire in its wake. We picked it up. It was composed of a tube about 2 feet long, of hammered copper, tipped with a strong triangular point. The end is formed of a wooden handle about 10 feet long. These fuses go through a roof as easily as a loaded ball and, besides, are a great menace of fire. Saturday, July 7th, since 4:30. In the morning, the Boxers have thrown explosives on our roof for 2 hours. More than 250 of these projectiles have ignited, but our precautions were well planned. Casks, bathing tubs, buckets full of water, men provided with hooks and pumps, were ready, and the fire did not spread. At 6 o'clock the cannon on the north was discharged, and at first sent simple balls against us. We answered by a full volley and several shots from our set cannon. The Tartars, surprised, quickly changed their cannon and replaced it by a Krupp gun. The first shell blew our gunner to pieces, the position became untenable, all the structures to the west of Zhuotiang are bored through. Moreover, during the whole day several hundreds of fuses were thrown on our roofs. This day is one of the most disastrous of the siege. Toward evening only, shells were replaced by Chinese bombs, many of which did not explode, total 360 cannon shots in 12 hours. But one of our number was killed and several were wounded. Without miraculous protection, all would have been in flames today. Sunday, July 8th. Since morning, we have strengthened the places weakened by the cannonade of the preceding day, but the bombardment began again, more lively than before, at 9 o'clock, at first, simple balls, then shells. The clock tower is completely demolished. Total, 102 cannon shots and new fuses, which like those of the day before, did not set fire to anything. Monday, July 9th. At 5 o'clock in the morning, the Boxers again began to throw explosives, intense firing all day, and 107 cannon shots, only 2 Christians were wounded. We are beginning to be somewhat fatigued and disquieted, especially as the enemy is preparing, it seems, to bombard us from the south and the west. From 11 till midnight, we heard a terrible battle on the side of the legations. Tuesday, July 10th. After a tranquil morning, fighting was renewed at 10 o'clock. The cannon on the north continued to demolish. At 2 o'clock, the attack became more vigorous. 2 enormous pieces of artillery set on the south wrought much damage to our great gate and the church. A full volley silenced them for an instant, but the Chinese artillerymen protected their gunners by iron masks. At the great gate, the sailor David received a ball in the head, dying a half-hour afterwards, fortified by the sacraments. But 5 men remain at this dangerous post. The others have taken refuge in the casemates. 107 loaded balls, 25 pounds each, have been fired. One of these, after having blown the windows of our room into pieces, fell on the bed which I had just left. Still another miracle. We no longer count them. Wednesday, July 11th. Casemate has given way. It is being speedily repaired despite the firing. A Mauser ball has passed through the hat of Bishop Jarlin. A hairbreadth below, and I should have had no coadjutor. The Blessed Virgin has saved the beloved and brave bishop. The bombardment began again at 1:30. A few minutes afterwards a fearful explosion shook all our buildings. A column of earth and stones is being raised over 30 yards high to the east of Zhuotiang. We all flee to it. Fortunately, the mine was not carried far enough, and we have escaped with a few damaged houses that can be propped, 1 killed and several wounded. We thank God. The bombardment continues. A shell has fallen in the chapel of the sisters, on the benches, which they have just left to go to supper. During the night, we set fire to houses which the Boxers occupied only yesterday. We found 20 casks of petroleum, some swords and guns, which are burning with the other things. Thursday, July 12th. The morning of this day was so quiet that we thought the soldiers had left. But, about 10:30, enormous balls commenced to rain down on us until 6 o'clock in the evening. Sent at long intervals apart, but 50 reached their aim, that is to say, our great gate, which is now in a deplorable condition. Friday, July 13th. The fear of mines decided us to undertake an exploration about 2 o'clock in the morning. Several holes were found and filled in, that were beginnings of mines in which rolls of electric wire had been placed, evidently intended to set off the powder. At midday, the firing of cannon began again. A sailor was seriously wounded in the head by splintering bricks, another was sadly bruised. From 7 till 9 o'clock in the evening bombarding and firing on the side of legations. Saturday, July 14th. Several Christians are going to set fire to the houses which interfere with the shooting from the great gate. At Zhenzetiang, about 11 o'clock, an Italian Marine was killed by a shot in the head. A Christian, who wanted to find out whence the fire came, was likewise killed. Excepting a few hundred gunshots, the day has been quiet enough. Sunday, July 15th. One would suppose that the Chinese artillerymen had repented their not bombarding us yesterday. From 9 in the morning they recommenced their work of destruction. The cannon on the south and southwest wrought the greatest damage at the Great Gate and to the church, only 140 shots during the day. And they continued during the night. Fresh nocturnal exploration. 2 unfinished mines were again discovered and destroyed. Monday, July 16th. The Boxers continue to throw explosives without effect. From 9 o'clock in the morning till 10 in the evening, they sent hundreds of balls against us. One Christian woman has been killed, a sailor has been wounded in both eyes by the splintering of bricks, one is certainly lost. Tuesday, July 17th. This day has been the most quiet, perhaps, of the siege, no cannon shots and scarcely and from guns. It seems as though the Boxers are preparing a scheme. We have begun a novena to Satan, patroness of our brave Bretons. Our beloved Commander Henry will present the ex voto which we have promised if we are delivered. Wednesday, July 18th, are energetically pushing the work of a countermine already begun, because, for some days, we have been hearing heavy blows on the west side of Zhenzetiang under the Yellow Wall. About 11 o'clock we ascertained that our enemies were moving away on the side of the Pagoda of the Lamas which adjoins us on the east. 50 vehicles are transporting the chests and bundles of Boxers and soldiers. Is the Army of Relief AP pro-waking, or do the Lamas think that the neighborhood is going to be blown up? Mystery. Alas. The second supposition is true. At 5 o'clock, mine explosion, 25 dead, 28 wounded. The whole part west of Zhenzetiang in ruins. We make a rush, expecting attack from the Boxers, they did not come. Unfortunately we number among the dead brother Joseph, a Marist, who led the workmen of the countermine, a young man, 25 years of age, as pious as he was brave, loved and lamented by all. The explosion occasioned a panic, and subterranean noises were supposed to be heard everywhere. Women and children ran about, frightened to death, and, despite the danger, most of them took refuge in the cathedral, which occupies the central site of our buildings. Burial Thursday, July 19th, Feast of St. Vincent. Of Brother Joseph, exchange of fire with Boxers. The Marine Frank, who exposed himself too much, received a ball in his head and died almost instantly. He lived just long enough to receive absolution. Friday, July 20th, our Christians are again going to burn the most dangerous houses, about 6 o'clock. The Boxers, on their part, set fire to a house south of Great Gate. Work on the mine where the sisters our war was continued, we need not urge our Christians to work. They have not forgotten the catastrophe of the 18th, Saturday, July 21. Provisions are beginning to get low, with great economy they will last 15 days. The attempt was made to get some from a small store only 200 yards distant, but stopped by soldiers and Boxers, our Christians returned empty-handed. Sunday, July 22d. Firing continued all night. The enemy evidently fears that we are going for provisions. 2 Christians have been wounded, and 1 sailor lost his left eye by a ball that lodged back of the ear. One of our Chinese sighted the Boxers digging a large ditch back of the Yellow Wall. Men ascended the ladders, the barrels of their guns well filled, and shot down 20 of the enemy, as well as 2 mandarins. In the evening, diluvian rain, the casemates are uninhabitable. For Monday, July 23d. After a half-day's quiet, we were attacked in the afternoon at 4 o'clock by several thousand Boxers, and as many regular soldiers, called together by tam-tams and trumpets that sounded without interruption. The attack was made simultaneously on the north, east, and south. The death of several Marines and the serious wounds of some others deprived us of 5 guns. We had trained and drilled so many of the Marist brothers and Chinese students of the seminary not in orders, so that our 30 Lebel guns were all in constant use, besides the 10 Italians defending the sisters. The attack was extremely vigorous. Boxers, Lamas, and regular soldiers, to the number of more than 1,000, tried to scale the wall. They left 150 dead on the ground and took to flight. Enraged, the soldiers of Prince Tuan discharged all their ammunition on the side of our grand gate, and, without exaggeration, during 1 hour sent 5,000 Mauser bullets that did not wound a single one of us. The trumpets then sounded a retreat, and we were left undisturbed. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. Tuesday, July 24th. In the northeast, near the pagoda, we see a number of Boxers wearing yellow turbans and belts. These are the Brigade of Llamas. They carry a French flag. This puerile ruse makes us laugh despite the sadness of the hour. About 4:30 tam-tams again united the Boxers, and we anticipated an attack which did not take place. Yesterday's lesson was profitable. 3 Christians were wounded during the day, and a new mine discovered on the south. From the top of the church large numbers of flags were seen, and at night as many lanterns on the walls of the city. Wednesday, July 25th, quiet enough day. Our Christians went out and burned several embattled houses without being disturbed. The Boxers dug very deep trenches back of the yellow wall, we do not know why. Our Marines killed a dozen of these brigands. Thursday, July 26th, at 1 o'clock very loud explosion. An exploded mine was the first thought of all, and everyone ran to his post. It was nothing. A bold Boxer had carried a large bomb to our eastern wall, and it exploded without doing any damage. At 3 o'clock Father Chavan, a Lazarist priest, died almost suddenly. A few days before he had been wounded on guard at his post by a ball probably poisoned, since it brought on black smallpox which caused his death. Friday, July 27th. We hear very severe cannon auditing distinctly on the south and east. We always hoped to see the army coming. Several fuses thrown at night made us think that the legations are communicating by signals with troops outside of the city. What is hoped for is easily believed. Saturday, July 28th. We are again very seriously concerned about provisions. We have fixed the rations at 8 ounces a day for a person. We can thus survive 10 days. Cannon were again heard about 10 o'clock. One was set only 100 yards away from Jensetiong. The gunners were quickly shot down, but the cannon was moved farther away and sent 75 projectiles against us. The enemies seem to be short of ammunition, and are loading their cannon with almost anything, even stones. During the night we received 35 bombs and numberless shots from guns on the ramparts. Sunday, July 29th. The bombardment continues. The soldiers have shot off 115 filled balls, and bullets have been so numerous that all our battlements are demolished. 3 Christians were killed. Monday, July 30th. The night was bad. They continued to fire on Jensetiong. From 7 o'clock in the morning, the cannon commenced their work, assisted by heavy firing on the part of regular soldiers. Commander Henry is descending the break with 12 men. Boxers enter in large numbers, carrying faggots wet with petroleum, which they light against the northern wall. Commander Henry multiplies himself. Several hundreds of the Boxers have been killed. Unfortunately, 2 sailors were wounded by a ball which entered the commander's neck. He then descended from the scaffolding, and received a second Mauser bullet in his side. Notwithstanding these 2 mortal wounds, he still kept up. Finally he succumbed under the veranda, in the arms of a priest, who administered the last sacraments to him. At the end of 20 minutes, he died as a brave soldier and good Christian. We shed tears but once during the siege, and it was on this day. Never before have we been so low down. The simple quartermaster Elias took command of the detachment, but Bishop Jarlin is there to watch over our Bretons, who cry like children over the death of their leader. 150 shots from cannon were fired during the day. One hope is left to us. The commander had told us, "I shall not die until you no longer need me." He will protect us from heaven with Saint Mauritius and Saint George, whom he has joined. Tuesday, July 31st. The Boxers have sent arrows against us, to which writings of similar character have been attached. They contain about what follows: you, Christians, shut up in the Peking, reduced to the greatest misery, eating leaves of trees. Why do you resist with so much animosity when you are no longer able to do so? We have leveled cannon and set mines against you, and you will be destroyed in a short time. You have been deceived by the devils of Europe. Return to the ancient religion of Phono, deliver up Bishop Favier and the others, and will have saved your lives, and we will give you to eat. If you do not do so, you, your wives and children, will all be cut into pieces. It is needless to say that not one of our brave Christians was so much as tempted to accept these offers, and yet each received but 10 ounces of food a day. Today 80 shots from cannon were fired against us without much damage, excepting to our roofs, which are nearly all riddled. Wednesday, August 1st. Since 6 o'clock in the morning the Boxers have returned to the north. They are only 300 to 400 in number. They were quickly routed, at least 50 were killed. A short time afterwards we heard on the side of the pagoda of the Lamas, cries and firing. It seems that there was a quarrel between the Boxers and the soldiers, and that the latter killed some of their opponents. Thursday, August 2d. We are lessening our own rations and those of our Christians. Weakness is general. We have only just enough to keep us from starving to death. The dogs that are feeding on the dead bodies of Boxers are hunted, killed, and eaten. Our unfortunate people are adding this miserable food to leaves of trees and roots of all kinds. The time for the rainy season has come long since, but no rain falls. God has left the roads passable for the army of relief. Friday, August 3d. It seems as though we are no longer watched. Shots are so rare. There is even some talk of venturing a sortie at 2 o'clock in the morning in quest of grain, but for this we would be obliged to expose the lives of 2/3 of our Marines. We shall not do so until there is absolutely nothing more to eat in the house. Saturday, August 4th. As usual, for 4 days we have been left undisturbed during the day, but at night severe firing always begins again. The Boxers and regulars know that we are in the very last extremity of need, and are trying to keep us from going out. Urged on by hunger, several Christians escaped, entered burned houses, and brought back a little burned rice found among the rubbish. It is very sad. Sunday, August 5th. The question of food is the only one that now engages our attention. We can resist balls, bullets, and bombs, but we can make no resistance against famine. We have carefully weighed all that there is to eat. The total amount is 7,000 pounds. It is decided to distribute 1,000 pounds a day among 3,000 persons. Thus we can survive 7 days. We fervently hope that the army of relief will arrive this week. God has granted us such strong protection until now. Monday, August 6th. A few Christians, unable to suffer the pangs of hunger any longer, again ventured out. 3 were captured by the Boxers, who led them away to be cut into pieces. To this sad occurrence another is added. The sailor on duty at the Great Gate has had his right eye shot out. There are already 3 among our poor soldiers blind in one eye. Tuesday, August 7th. Severe cannonading has been heard in the distance. Soldiers and Boxers are attacking us feebly. This makes us hope that the army is approaching, but our Christians are so weak-kneed that they are sleeping under the verandas, thin, pale, and as if in a faint. If the enemy were to attempt an assault upon our 500 armed men of the start, hardly 25 would be in a condition to repulse them. Wednesday, August 8th. Always the same quiet, without a total cessation of firing. A Christian gathering leaves on a tree was struck by a ball, and fell like a poor bird pierced by an arrow. Thursday, August 9th. We are constantly on the watch, as the Boxers have promised that we shall all perish. In face of the danger, east of the Great Gate is being explored. 1 Christian has been killed, and 2 have been wounded, but a mine was discovered, and just in time to be destroyed. Friday, August 10th. We acknowledge with terror that in 2 days our provisions will be exhausted. We have set aside 400 pounds of rice and a mule, so that our defenders may survive 10 days. The question was proposed whether anything shall be reserved for ourselves and the sisters. The answer was unanimous, no, we shall die with our Christians. Someone, however, remarked that we deserved greater pity than the poor people, since they could eat the leaves of trees, and we could not. It was then decided that a 2-pound loaf of bread should be given to each one of us. This last reserve was kept in our rooms. The rations have been reduced to 2 ounces per person. 6 days are thus assured, but what days? Still water is plenty, and with it, life can be preserved some time. At midday the cannon on the north was again fired against us, as well as that on the east, only 50 balls, however. The aim is poor. The Boxers, inexperienced, are handling the pieces. About 3 o'clock a captive balloon was seen on the south. Our confidence increases. Saturday, August 11th. 60 shots from cannon, today again. Instead of balls they are firing anything at all, old iron, nails, stones, even brick. In the evening, we discovered and destroyed another mine on the south of the Great Gate. Sunday, August 12th. At 6:15 in the morning, violent explosion, a mine more terrible than the others burst where the sisters were. All, at once, ran to the scene. Happily, most of the children and religious were at Mass in the chapel, otherwise half would have perished. The damage done is fearful. All the eastern part of Zhejiang is a heap of rubbish. A hollow 7 yards deep and 40 in diameter marks the place of explosion. 5 Italian Marines and their officer disappeared. More than 80 Christians, including 51 children in the cradle, have been buried forever under this ruin. Notwithstanding a shower of balls, we go to help the wounded. Brother Julius Andrew, visitor of the Marist brothers, met his death in trying to save a half-buried woman. He was a man of great courage who, during the whole siege, manifested intelligence, devotion, and bravery beyond compare. The French Marines, who at once appeared on the scene of disaster, killed 50 Boxers that tried to force an entrance. The others took to flight. Until evening we worked trying to save the buried. We rescued Mr. Olivieri, commander of the Italian detachment. He is covered with bruises, but he will be spared. Of his 5 Marines, 2 were discovered live, but their wounds leave no ground for hope. A post of French Marines is stationed at Zhejiang with some seminarians to defend, in case of need, the break, which is 80 yards long. Since 8 o'clock in the morning the cannonading has not ceased. We have received more than 100 projectiles. We are at the very last extremity. Monday, August 12th. All are suffering very much from famine. Despondency is general, but the repeated firing of cannon heard in the distance leaves us a little hope. At 11 o'clock a new mine exploded in Zhejiang, thanks be to God. It was not carried far enough, and the damage done is comparatively insignificant. In the evening we heard the Boxers cry, "The devils from Europe are approaching. We will die if we must, but you shall perish before us." At 4 o'clock in the evening the brave Marine, Robars, was killed at his post by being shot in the forehead. We have only enough food to last 2 days, and what food? Tuesday, August 14th. A terrible battle is being fought on the southeast. We hear cannon, mitraille loses in volleys. From the top of the church, the Chinese flags are seen to disappear from the walls. At 11 o'clock the bombardment is stronger. We see fugitives making their escape, people who are moving away. Despite the balls sent against us from all sides, hope reigns in our hearts. We are again able to speak, smiles come to our lips, for the army of relief is evidently attacking Pekin. At 5 o'clock in the evening we see at a long distance 5 strange officers on the walls and a Marine signaling to the east. Not far from there, an American flag is waving. Until 9 o'clock missiles are multiplied. We see 200 to 300 wounded Chinese carried away. Wednesday, August 15th, Feast of the Assumption. Before daybreak, a gate of Pekin, on the east, was in flames. From 7 till 9 o'clock, noise of cannon, volleys and firing of mitrailleuses are incessantly heard. The army is probably making an assault. Numbers of European soldiers are seen in the place where the 5 officers were yesterday. Until 9 o'clock in the evening we hoped that they would come to deliver us. The Blessed Virgin, who has led the troops into Pekin on the day of her glorious Assumption, will send them to us tomorrow, please God. 400 pounds of food are left. For 3,000 persons. Providence seems to have counted the grains of rice. Could he have counted more exactly? Thursday, August 16th. I had just celebrated Mass at 6 o'clock, and was making my act of thanksgiving under a veranda, when I heard severe firing from a large band approaching from the south. About 7:30 the shots came perceptibly nearer, and before 8 o'clock were heard about 300 yards away, behind the gate of the yellow city called Sihoa. This gate had been closed. Large numbers of regular soldiers occupied it, and in the street which leads from this gate to the imperial palace, several strong barricades had been built of sacks of rice which were defended by at least 1,500 men armed with repeaters. Not count the Boxers and regulars stationed in the embat-led houses provided with embrasures. Our people, who climbed the walls, thought that they recognized some European soldiers stationed behind the gate of Sihoa. Others, Chinese soldiers, we did not know whether it were a last attack or deliverance that was in preparation. At all events, I sounded the casquette du Père Bugad on the bugle 3 times. No response, no hurrah, came back from without, but from within, a rain of projectiles poured down upon us. A bomb exploded at my feet. I had time to shelter myself back of a brick column. At the end of a half hour, a bold Christian, who climbed the wall of the yellow city, came running to me and said, "They are surely Europeans. I saw an officer dressed in white, with stripes." We had already raised a large French flag on top of the church. With the signal, we asked for immediate relief. The director of the seminary and his students carried another new flag 200 yards farther north and repeated the bugle calls. The officer seen came up to the flag, a ladder was passed to him, and he pressed the hand of my coadjutor who had gone to that side. It was a Japanese captain. He asked, "Can you open the gate of the Yellow City?" It was impossible considering our small number. "Very good," he replied, "I shall try to force it." And he went down on the other side of the wall. At this moment we saw a new band of soldiers, dressed in blue, quickly approaching with cannon. This time, they called out to me, "We are no longer in doubt, they are French." They ran directly up to the flag, set some ladders on their side, and we placed others on our side. In a few minutes, 50 of Marty's company with their commander were among us. During this time the Japanese, scaling the wall farther south, had opened a panel of the gate. The French artillery, stationed opposite, finished the work, and despite the fire of several thousand shots to the minute, the barricades were attacked. The marine infantry that had entered our lines had time to cross our ground and take the large barricade. In the rear, after having scaled and burned the embattled house, and met their defenders at the point of the bayonet, the battle was over. More than 800 dead bodies of Boxers or Chinese regulars were strewn on the ground. We had cause to mourn only the loss of 2 killed, 3 were wounded, among them Commander Marty. It was about 10 o'clock. The French minister, Mr. Pichon, and General Fry had been in the Beitang for a quarter of an hour. Needless to say that mutual greetings and congratulations were offered from the depths of our hearts. We were saved.